In Dragon Ball Super, we have seen the hierarchy of the gods slowly revealed to us until we have seen someone who, other than Zeno, appears to stand above all others in terms of power and prominence: the Grand Priest Daishinkan. But many fans of the series believe that perhaps Daishinkan is not a benevolent deity, but rather one who looks to put into place plans of a more malevolent and evil nature. Well, today, Oppai Senpai and I are going to be breaking down whether or not Daishinkan is truly evil in Dragon Ball Super. Don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to my channel to stay up to date on all upcoming videos in the future.
Oh yes, this was a hot topic back a few months ago when we didn't really know what was happening at the Terminal Power. A lot of YouTubers were talking about, oh, is the Great Priest evil? So this is gonna be a fun topic to revisit now that he doesn't appear to be evil, but let's try to look at some evidence to see if, one, he is evil, and if he's not, why he would make a great upcoming villain for a future arc. So hola mi gente, my name is Oppai Senpai, and thanks for having me on the show, my man.
Yeah, no problem. This has been a really interesting kind of theory that fans have been putting forward, as well as other YouTubers, for a while now. And even though Daishinkan doesn't really seem to be overtly evil at this point, or he doesn't appear to be really letting on if he actually is, he still seems to be helping out his master Zeno, there is a possibility that beneath that smile, there's something a lot more dark lurking beneath that surface. So what do you think are some kind of evidences that would point to him being a little bit darker than we really expect?
Right, so well, let's look at some possible motives first of all. So the Great Priest has done so much work in terms of building the Terminal Power, the stage, and just serving the Omni Kings. But in terms of his reward, he was giving a piece of candy for all his hard work. So clearly, he ain't doing it for the money. He's not doing it for some delicious food, just a little piece of candy. So that's a little bit of motive out of the way. So what are some possible motives, and what about from the perspective of Toei Animation? So if you look at the opening, for example, the opening, the promotional material, and just look at some of the episodes from a few months ago, Toei Animation really made an effort to make the Great Priest seem a little bit sinister, whether it be the way he looked down at the mortals, whether it be the way he talks in a respectful manner, but at the same time, he gives you a threat, like you better not do this or you will be erased. That sort of stuff. They were hinting or playing around with the idea that he could be an evil character with a hidden agenda. But in addition to that, let's look at it from this perspective. The Great Priest, more than anybody, has the biggest access to the most powerful beings in the multiverse, the Omni Kings. But not only does he have access to them, he can actually manipulate them. And if you look at some of the recent examples, for example, the Omni Kings were getting pretty anxious. They were like, we want the tournament to start now. And normally, if you are even a god, you can't say no to the Omni Kings. But the Great Priest was able to tell them we should give them a little bit more time because the fighters need more time to gather their warriors, and the Omni Kings listened to him. They took the advice of the Great Priest, so he definitely has the power over the Omni Kings when it comes to his ability to have influence over them. So that is definitely something that we can't rule out.
Yeah, that's a great point that you raise, and another really great example of Daishinkan essentially telling the Omni King that he cannot do something and the Omni King essentially obeying him would have to be when Goku was facing Toppo at the Zen exhibition match, because Goku was powering up with his Kaioken on top of his Super Saiyan Blue. Toppo seemed to be going to full power, and Goku said, I'll show you what happens when I break my limits, or when I pass my limits, and the Zenos were both getting really excited, and then Daishinkan was the one to actually stop their fight. And of course the Zenos were saying, why did you stop the fight? We want to see what happens when he breaks his limit. And of course Daishinkan was saying that they might as well save it for the upcoming tournament so that they could better savor it. And of course the Omni King didn't immediately just vaporize Zeno and blow him into non-existence, so it's clear that he either has some respect for Daishinkan or he believes believes that he is more of a figure that can actually stand up to him and say what he can or cannot do, because, as you pointed out, other than Goku, nobody really ever says no to the Omni King. No one ever really, says that you cannot do something except for Daishinkan. And I kind of maybe view Daishinkan similarly to how Whis or Vados or the other angels are to their god of destruction, except in this case, I'm doubtful that Daishinkan would be more powerful than Zeno, but if he can manipulate Zeno, for instance, if he can tell him this is what you need to do, or this is what you need to do, and Zeno will actually listen, then that could be far more threatening than being as powerful or more powerful than Zeno on his own.
Exactly. Now let's also look at who has the Omni King threatened before. He's threatened multiple people, even his own bodyguards, but he has never once threatened the Great Priest. Never told him, I will erase you. Nope. He looks at the Great Priest for advice and for leadership, but also the Great Priest seems to be the one making most of the decisions. Now, the Omni King, of course, being the leader, he is the one to make the final decision. But when it comes to the little details, such as, okay, we're gonna have a tournament of power. That was Goku's idea along with the Omni King. But when it comes to the rules of the tournament, we still don't know who exactly created those little details. Was it the Great Priest who made those rules about being erased, or was that the Omni King? That was never clarified. So I do believe that possibly or likely it was the Great Priest who created these rules of erasing the universes for whatever motive he has behind the scenes.
Well, one of the reasons why I believe that the Grand Priest might have been the one to have actually enacted these rules is because of the fact that the angels seem to be excluded. Now, we know that the angels, Whis and Vados, are the children of the Great Priest. So that is perhaps either him going to Zeno and saying, don't erase my children from existence when you destroyed or erase the respective universes, or he is the one putting everything into place, so as long as the other universes vanish and his children essentially do not, then it's not really of concern to him. Although if the gods of destruction themselves are erased, it does raise the question of what the purpose of the other angels would be, since according to the anime and manga, they seem to basically deactivate whenever their gods are killed. So I kind of wonder, if that is the case, what exactly does Daishinkan have in store for his children?
Yeah, great point about the angels. So something I want to say about the angels is this. The angels are almost like, they don't fear the Omni King, first of all. They have no fear of the Omni King. Why wouldn't they? I mean, they should be scared. He is the most powerful being. He also is very childish. The Omni King tends to destroy and erase when you piss him off. And the angels don't spend personal time with the Omni King like the Great Priest does. Maybe one of the reasons that they don't fear the Omni King is because the Omni King is not the one to fear. Because they know possibly that the Great Priest is the one manipulating things, that he is the true master. He is the true person to fear, not the Omni Kings. And that is possibly a reason why the angels are absolutely not scared of the Omni King whatsoever. And the fact that the Omni King only has his, the Great Priest and his two bodyguards, those are pretty much his right-hand people. But the Great Priest has 12 angels alongside him, and possibly even more. We don't know whatever happened to the other angels from the universes that were destroyed. Remember, there used to be 18 universes, so we don't know what happened to those angels. But clearly, in terms of power is not all about strength. A lot of times, power is more into how much you can manipulate. If you look at Game of Thrones, Littlefinger is not the most powerful fighter, but he is the guy behind the scenes manipulating everyone to his desires. So the Great Priest definitely has that manipulation power, and that in essence is true power.
It seems like with this current arc, with the last episode, for example, episode 95, in which we saw Frieza saying that he really wants to start to manipulate the gods and he sees this tournament as an example, I kind of wonder if that's Toriyama or Toei foreshadowing the possibility of a greater manipulation at hand, of the Daishinkan manipulating his own god or his own higher form of power. And if that's the case, I do wonder what the real motivation would be, as well as the plan, because that was a great point you raised as well about the destroyed universes, the ones that Zeno erased. What if maybe in those universes Daishinkan had other angels or other children that were erased? You know, maybe this is all some sort of plot for revenge in that case. You know, you don't really just casually raise the fact that there used to be 18 universes and Zeno wiped out a third of the universes just for getting angry without it probably building to something. So I do wonder if maybe that really is going to come up in the future, and if so, and if that really is the motivation, what do you think this kind of plan or plot is going to be on Daishinkan's part, and when do you think he's really going to enact it? Is it going to happen at this upcoming tournament, or do you think maybe it's something that'll happen even afterward?
I would like to think it would happen sometime afterwards, because I really wanted to get to the end of Dragon Ball Z after this current arc. But I do want to mention this. So the Great Priest, one of his possible motives is the fact that the Omni Kings are so childish, and the fact that they're so childish makes them very dangerous. They are very dangerous characters, and while the Great Priest does have a little bit of control over them, sometimes things get out of hand. So one of the possible reasons why he could be evil is maybe he is not an evil character, but rather it's something similar to what Zamasu's justice is, when it comes to the fact that possibly the Great Priest sees the Omni Kings as very dangerous beings, and so he wants to be the proper master, the proper leader of the multiverse. But another reason why he could be a villain is because he is not the second strongest character in the multiverse. At least we don't know that. He was said to be among the top 5 fighters of the multiverse, so that still leaves a few other spots of other strong characters, and you already know that villains don't tend to be the strongest characters. Villains, there tends to be enough of a gap where somebody else could challenge them. So the fact that there is a gap, he's among the top 5 fighters, that means that there's a possibility that somebody could challenge him, and therefore he could be a villain. Whereas if you look at the Omni King, being that the Omni King is number 1, he can't be a villain because nobody could challenge him, nobody could dethrone him. Whereas the Great Priest, it is possible to dethrone him since he is not absolute and does not have absolute power.
Yeah, that is a really good point, because for all we know, there's characters that can hold the Grand Priest down with one finger, similar to how he might be able to do that to Whis. So, you know, if somebody's that far above him and he truly wants to be the top god, similar to Zamasu, then, you know, he kind of has to do away with them in that case. It does also kind of make me wonder in what way he'd be able to actually go about doing this. In some ways, I kind of think about the original X-Men cartoon from the 1990s, in which Apocalypse, the great villain of X-Men in many ways, used all the different powers of the different psychics in order to make himself more powerful, so that he could pretty much take the creation or the universe and pretty much remake it in his own image, which is also similar to what Darkseid has tried to do many times. So I kind of wonder if maybe if it did involve this tournament, you know, you would get something kind of inspired from that, where he takes the power of all the eliminated fighters to add it to his own, so that he could maybe try and surpass even the Omni King. But, you know, I have kind of inclinations that they might have another tournament after this with the other remaining universes at some point. So I kind of feel like perhaps that would be more appropriate in this case, because those guys are probably going to be way more powerful as the story tends to go. But I feel like there's just so many different possibilities that could be explored with this character if he really were evil, and if those fans really kind of were getting that on the nose.
Right. Yeah, totally agree with that. And we definitely are going to see a tournament, at least when it comes to the end of Dragon Ball Z and the Oob saga. There's definitely going to be a tournament there. But yeah, when it comes to the multiverse, another multiversal type of tournament, I would definitely like to see that.
Yeah, I think that'd be really cool. And it'd be interesting if maybe they somehow kind of like retcon the end of Z to fit in there. Like maybe Goku is taking Oob to train him to be in the next tournament, you know? Something that would involve them actually utilizing the end of Z a little bit better than they did in the manga and in Dragon Ball GT. But that's a whole other can of worms we probably don't want to open right now.
Yeah.
All right, but let us know your own thoughts down down below in the comments section whether you think Daishinkan is evil and what your theories are about what he'd want to do. Of course, check out Oppai at AnimeLiveReactions for some awesome Dragon Ball content, and subscribe and enable those notifications if you want to see my video content right away when it comes out. And as I always say, stick around because there's a lot more to come in the future.
Yo, yeah, definitely. Take it easy, guys.
Yeah, and you better subscribe, enable those damn notifications.